All right, thank you for joining us on 24 Plus. We are continuing our coverage of President Donald Trump's visit to Memphis. We have an excellent group of panelists here to kind of give us a debrief of everything that's happened. We just heard from Memphis Mayor Paul Young. We are going to get into that. But just to introduce everybody again, we have political analyst of ABC 24, Otis Sanford, Shelby County Commissioner Mick Wright, as well as Pastor Keith Norman of First Baptist Church Broad. So the first question I had asked before Memphis Mayor Paul Young came in was, Commissioner Wright, what did you think of President Donald Trump's visit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big day for Memphis and Shelby County. This doesn't happen very often. Maybe every few years, every few terms, you'll get a visit like this. So it's certainly a big day for our community, and it's a big day to kind of celebrate. I don't know if celebrate's the most appropriate word, but just to honor and recognize the progress that we've made with the Memphis Safe Task Force. It was a very surreal moment in the Oval Office to see our community talked about. You to have the president talking about Memphis and having the both U.S. senators there, the cabinet, all of these big people talking about our community and the need that we have, and then to see them deliver on that and to see the change that it's made. So I would say it's a big day for us.
Most definitely. I will say it's a historic moment when any president makes their way into Memphis. So Otis, we just heard from Memphis Mayor Paul Young. Biggest takeaways, since this is the first time we've really heard from him since the visit was announced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on reading body language here, but I just saw the mayor looking a little bit beleaguered there. And maybe that's because people have been sort of hounding him and asking him, what are you going to do? Are you going to be there or you're not going to be there? He just looked a little worn today. But he was resolute by saying that his focus is where his focus needs to be, which is on the city of Memphis and making sure that the trends that we see right now of crime going down continues to go down. Because at some point, the task force is going to leave, and we will still have to deal with issues in Memphis, and he wants to see that downward trajectory continue to go. That was his overall message here. But again, he just looked a little tired there in the fact that this has been such an overwhelming thing for him all along. He has been sort of caught in a vice grip, if you will, because you are a blue city in a red state where all of the red state leaders are saying we're doing this whether you want to do it or not. And so that's the message that I picked up from him.
And Pastor Norman, this is from after the roundtable and after Trump's visit to Graceland. Memphis Mayor Paul Young decided to have this press conference at 3, but we noticed he wasn't on the visit itself. So what do you have to say about his absence and whether or not he was asked?
Well, his absence, was he invited? I mean, this is a presidential event, and while there are many people who were around the table, they were handpicked to be there. And if you notice, everyone had a script in front of them. They didn't write those scripts this morning. Those scripts were written and they were mailed and they went over those scripts. And so maybe Paul was or was not invited. I do kind of push back on the fact that he continues to be mentioned in these events, but we don't know if he's invited. So the last time there was an event, or once before, the president said the mayor invited, or the mayor invited us to the city. Today he said the mayor has been a tremendous partner. He's done tremendous with us in this process. We don't know about that interaction. And I think we deserve to know, and the president should not continue to push that narrative, because politically it could mean one thing for Paul or another thing for Paul. And so we want our mayor to tell his own story. He's done some great work. This work was already in process. 25 percentage points of the 40 points that have been achieved were already down by September of last year. The other 10 to 15% that was added on top of it has been because of resources that were already available that could have been given to the city anyway. Collaborative effort, working together to fight a problem. We should have already had the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We should have already had the FBI and all of the other coordinated forces, ATF, in this area, because these are available to all American cities and they shouldn't be on task force special agendas.
I do want to dive a little deeper into some of the task force work, but before that, Commissioner Wright, so you know what it's like to kind of work on both sides of the aisle and just having to work with different people at the table given the commission. So what do you, read between the lines for us a little bit, what do you make of President Donald Trump and Governor Bill Lee's relationship with Memphis Mayor Paul Young?
Yeah, I think that's key. I think we certainly have to work across the aisle on these issues. Otis talked about a blue city and a red state, and sometimes we're a red state and in a blue country, and those things go back and forth. It is so important that we collaborate. Right now, I feel like we have a breakdown, or we've had over the last few years a breakdown between, let's say, the sheriff and the county mayor, or communications between judges and other elected officials. Certainly county clerk and commissioners have been strained relationships, but those are very important. All of those pieces need to work together. I am encouraged to see the president. I think that may be my takeaway from today is that the president committed to ongoing support and saying, this big goal of kind of even no crime, which we'd all love to see. But I think in order to continue to see those gains, like Pastor Norman mentioned, we're going to have to work together. And that's why I think it's important to have that local, where is the local presence and how is that going to work so we can continue those gains?
Yeah, go ahead.
But let me address something that I think needs to be said here. While it is a real big deal that any president comes to a city, I think we would have been better served today if the president had come and talked to even more people, such as the gentleman from Pew Flowers, such as Miss Ballinger, and a variety of people in the community, including those who say that, well, the parts of the task force have not been all that kind to me. It would have been more effective to have him go on a listening tour on this than to have him sit there and let people praise him. Yeah. Because that's all that happened.
Yeah, they went around the table.
I'm not being politically critical here.
Yes, you are.
Maybe I am to some degree, but I'm not a politician. I'm a journalist, and I'm just saying that to be more effective here, it would have been good to have citizens like Miss Ballinger and the gentleman from the Pew Flowers talking about the impact and how it has helped us. We are glad that instead of having Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel talk about how wonderful you are.
One word, disrespectful. You asked, how do you perceive the relationship between the governor and the president towards our city, our mayor? Disrespectful. To put things in motion without having conversation with the highest elected official in that space. And to sit down and say, come to the White House, let's talk, or let's get together. These announcements were being made a week ago and no communication had taken place with our mayor. That's disrespectful.
Well,
we wouldn't do that.
I could argue that it was respectful that, one, it's the president, so he's going to do whatever he wants. And the fact that Memphis Mayor Paul Young did not go to the visit, the president didn't harp on that in his address. He did not say, they actually spoke highly of Paul Young, and he could have taken the opportunity to say something along the lines of, oh, I invited him, or we wanted him to be here, but he didn't want to. And so I think there's a little bit of...
And since he's been the president, we've accepted that. We've accepted the fact that he gets to change the rules and do what he wants to do, but it's still a simple communication. I'm flying into your city. I'm coming into the city. We're going to have a press conference to talk about these things. Are there any things you want to discuss or talk about? An invitation and an extension of courtesy. Politics has taken on a different tone. We have people who are making decisions about our city as far as Nashville and the federal government and D.C., and we're learning about them. We learn about them a day after the decision is made.
Okay, and Commissioner Wright, one of the things that stuck out to me was Governor Bill Lee's notion of how Memphis used to be when he grew up, and then how it has kind of transpired since, and saying that Nashville is the heart, but Memphis is the soul. And that was a different message than I think kind of started the whole address of this whole thing. It seems like if you're not familiar with Memphis, the messaging around the Memphis Safe Task Force is like they came in and just saved this city, like the city was, on fire. So I just want to ask you, what notes to you stood out, and does the messaging around how bad Memphis is does that ever bother you?
I think for me, we got to a point with the violent crime during this term. So I'm in the 4th year of my last term on the county commission. In 22, we took office, and that right when we took office was around Labor Day, and that's when we had a couple of very violent episodes with Eliza Fletcher and with the mass shooting that we had. And at that time, my constituents it was a 5-alarm fire. It was whatever you can possibly do to make us safer. And I think it took an unconventional president, an unconventional approach to see this through. I will give certainly respect to the efforts that were taking place before. I think there are lots of hands, lots of people who do deserve our thanks for increasing. I think Senator Taylor is one of them. I think Governor Lee, certainly with Operation Viper, bringing in more Tennessee Highway Patrol. There's so many people. Pastor Norman and I both serve on the Crime Commission, so we follow all these efforts, whether it's prevention, intervention, transformational efforts. There's a lot that can be said, but I would go back to why the president was here today in our city, in our county. This was an unconventional approach to bring in all of these federal agencies, to bring together a task force, to really hammer it down and get it to a place where we could breathe again. And I think we're just finally starting as a community to be able to have a handle on the level of crime to where we feel safe again to go out.
Yeah, I think Mick touched on something here that has gotten a little lost in the crime situation in Memphis. The death of the murder of Eliza Fletcher and the killing spree of Ezekiel Kelly, they were watershed moments in this community because everybody was afraid. I mean, if Eliza Fletcher can get murdered just jogging down Central Avenue, then nobody's safe. Well, that was 2022. The problem that I have as we evolved here is that people are blaming people from a political perspective. Steve Mulroy made that point. He wasn't the DA in 2022. And so all of the blame is falling on partisan lines. Even the president today was talking about Democrats so evil and Democrats in the cities. There's too much politics being cast about in a blameful situation here when we should be talking about public safety in a bipartisan way and not just finger pointing all the time.
And the systemic issues that drove both of those crimes in many ways were already a part of our community that we had an opportunity to respond to. Remember the young man who was responsible for the Eliza Fletcher murder?
Cleo Abston.
He never should have been on the streets.
Never should have been on the streets.
So that was a systemic problem. Ezekiel Kelly, mental health issues that have been popping up on our radar for many years. I want to go back and say something. You mentioned the Crime Commission that spoke about many of these things and often said bring together task force to work in collaborative effort across lines to solve these problems. It has been a resource issue for many years. The state has never put the money behind it that we see now. Remember when the governor came to town, he said $100 million. And when you put a $100 million deposit to bring collaborative efforts together to solve a problem, you didn't hire new people, you didn't create new agencies, you just brought the agencies that were already in existence together and said share information, share data, and come up with a plan. And that's how they added to what Memphis was already doing. Why couldn't we have done that beforehand?
All right. Well, some people we talked to in the week leading up to the president's visit wanted to hear President Donald Trump talk about other aspects of what causes crime. And one of those things was poverty. And I didn't hear too much about any resources or how the task force is kind of negating that or trying to focus in on that. So I guess I'll ask you, Commissioner Wright, just when we tout these numbers, are there other situations or circumstances, I should say, that we need to think about when we're talking about crime and how to get to the root of it and fixing the problem here?
Yeah, I think there's certainly these massive systems and these areas, these domains of life and community life that have an influence on just our quality of life as a community. And sometimes it's hard to piece out which one is which, because a high crime environment is going to lead to poverty. It's if you don't feel safe going out to the show or the ball game or whatever it is, that has an economic impact. So these pieces work interchangeably together, and I think you've got to keep attacking. One thing that he said that I disagree with was that once we solve our crime situation, we're good. And I would say we have one more massive thing to fix, and that's our education system. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And another area where I feel encouraged, I think the state is going to take a role in helping us untangle that issue. So I would say once we work on crime and then we work on education, we'll be 2/3 of the way down that path toward really a vibrant community.
We are focused on President Trump's visit, but I know we all probably have something, or you all have something to say about the looming state takeover. So I'll let you guys.
Well, he just said it. He said the state is going to take a role in that, not come and sit with community stakeholders and leaders. And to this moment, let's all be very clear. We are days reportedly away from hearing about an audit and a plan. And I can guarantee you that most of the people in this room have not had any input or design in that or communication about it, but yet we'll be asked to make it work and to live with the results thereof. I think that's what I mean when I say disrespect towards a community, towards people who are fully capable of governing themselves with proper resources. You mentioned two things, and I'll quickly pivot from this. Crime and the education system, that you said that needs to be fixed, both are directly, systemically tied to poverty. And so if we don't bring poverty into this conversation, 650,000 people once in the city of Memphis, now down to 615,000, tax base erosion, largest land mass outside of Jacksonville, Florida to police, we are talking about a non-sustainable community in the years to come. If we don't fix poverty, we're going to continue to see this donut where Memphis is in the middle with no resources and the communities around us are thriving with all of the resources. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, I agree with that. And before we leave the Trump visit, though, we haven't talked a lot about the protests that were going on today. And while there may be a lot of people who watch us or who watched the president today who would just denigrate people why would you be protesting a president coming to your city? Well, because this whole issue is polarized. The president is a polarizing guy. And the people who are not happy that he's here, they are not happy about him and a lot of other reasons. And I'll point to one. How do you say that someone like Robert Mueller, who died over the weekend, who served his country, who has been a public servant, you're glad that he's dead? A lot of people who were out there today protesting out on Macon Road were protesting because of the demeanor of the president, not just the task force issue. And I think that needs to be said here because a president coming to town should be a great thing. Mick said it. It's a big deal. We've had presidents. We've had Barack Obama. We've had George H.W. Bush here. We've had, going all the way back to John F. Kennedy, came in 1960. Or after he got elected in 1960. So it's a good thing to have a president here. There shouldn't be any protest, but the reason there is because of the polarization.
Domination of the news cycle is very important. I think what the president is doing right now is dominating the news cycle with stories that he wants to put out. It's not something that you want to, elaborate on, but I can tell you that I'm one of the few people at this table who knows another celebrity that died on the day that Michael Jackson died. You don't know who that person is because you don't remember. You probably don't remember.
I do.
But it went under the radar because Michael Jackson died, and that was going to be the news story on that day.
Well, I remember the exact moment where I was when Michael Jackson
most of us,
died.
and then
you don't remember the other person.
And 5 minutes later, we heard about the other person, and it was like, We don't know now to
Okay,
this day.
I'm on the edge.
Farrah
of my seat.
Fawcett.
Farrah Fawcett. It was Farrah Fawcett.
yeah.
Farrah Fawcett died on the same day that Michael
the same
Jackson.
day.
Rest both of their souls, by the way.
That's a little bit of trivia there.
Yeah, it's trivia. But dominating the news cycle is my point.
Exactly.
When the story is out there, and let's be clear, he's done good putting his story forward. We're not talking about Epstein, Iran, and oil, right? We're talking about this.
EIO.
We're not talking about gas, right?
President Donald Trump did open with Operation Epic Fury.
He did.
And an update and how confident he was that America had a good grasp on the war.
He opened with his take on that,
Right.
Not the news story. he put the story out that he wanted to have in the atmosphere.
We're going to wrap that right here.